What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Optimal Physique Development Podcast with your host, myself, Jeffery, and prep coach from the US of A, Austin Stout. Finally, we have back on our special guest, Richard Foster, that we did have on last week, but Skype done us over with the recording equipment. So Rich is from Strom Sports Nutrition here in the UK, and we're just going to talk a little bit about the state of the supplement industry at the minute, quiz Rich a little bit about his products, maybe some stuff that's coming out in the future, and just some sort of nitty-gritty of where the supplement industry is right now. So, yeah, Rich, if you want to introduce yourself for anybody that's listening that doesn't know who you are.
Sure. My name is Richard Foster from Strom, as you said. I competed in strongman starting 10 years ago. I went to Britain's Junior Strongest Man. I competed in Wales Strongest Man. I then went on to promote and organise and run Wales Strongest Man and Giants Live Wales. I had my first supplement shop in North Wales about 7 years ago. When I split up with my ex-wife, that came to an end, and I moved to Shropshire, and I opened my new shop coming on for 3 years ago in Shrewsbury in Shropshire. We are now the biggest independent supplement store in the UK, and by biggest I mean purely in terms of square footage, not in terms of like money or stock or turnover or anything that matters, but we got a big shop. We produce what is fast becoming one of the most popular ranges of supplements within what I would call proper bodybuilders. Particularly Support Max is our on-cycle support product, and that's being bought by so many awesome guys. Jamie the Giant is the most recent purchaser that my ears pricked up at when I saw it on the system, which is, I'm sure you know him, the guy that turned up to the Two Bros event in London.
Yeah, nearly got his pro
made
card.
Made Aaron Hudson look small, and Aaron Hudson makes me look small.
Working with Phil Viz now, I think, Jamie is.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's exciting.
Yeah. And I sent 10 tubs to Luke Sandow today, which is cool. I also do a little bit of coaching. I'm pretty good at getting size on people relatively quickly. And I've got a few clients that have been with me for a very long time, but I don't advertise a lot of coaching services because I'm very busy, and I only like to work with people that aren't pains in my asses. And I know you guys are both full-time coaches, so you know exactly what I mean. There's some clients who you just give them a list of this is what I need you to do, and they crack on with it, and those are the people that I choose to work with because I don't have the time or the patience for the rest.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's cool that you mentioned Luke as well, because Luke's a big fan of one of our sponsors, Mediform, that sponsor him, and the Size Game guys.
I speak to Luke fairly regular, and then I speak to Ben Chow, his trading partner, a lot, because Ben's into motorbikes as well. I know Luke uses a double dose of Support Max, and we joked just a week ago the reason you do so well in the show was because it was the healthiest.
This background noise is a bit crazy. Wait for this to pass. Okay, cool. Say that again, Richard.
Interesting. Well, Luke runs a double dose of Support Max, and he genuinely says that he just feels better. His blood work has all come back in range, even while on prep, which is really cool. Interesting though, I looked into my Google Analytics the other day on the website. Not something I've done before, but our growth has been so dramatic of late. I thought I would have a look and see where it's coming from. And our number one referring website is Trained by JP's forums.
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised. That's cool.
I don't really go on there, to be honest. I've kind of just kept out of those guys' way because I know JP's got a thing with Redcon, and he tries to be very, very say within the terms of his contract, so he doesn't promote anything that kind of goes out of that. But obviously, someone over there likes what we do, which is cool.
So you mentioned Support Max is probably one of your best-selling products. It's the first product of yours I ever bought. It's our best
shittest margin product, but it's something we wanted to do to kind of get our name out there. I found myself looking around at what was available and going, you know what, there's nothing that I can buy that I feel comfortable just taking on its own without adding anything to it. I know everyone likes to add bits and bobs to things, but there was nothing that I felt I could just say to someone, hey, look, if you're on cycle, take this and it will cover all the main bases. And I looked into the costing of that, and it became clear very rapidly why a big company wouldn't do it. So, not to be vulgar with figures, but Support Max is kind of a 20 to 25% margin product. It's very shit for a product that we get manufactured. So if you were, as an example, I don't know, I'll use ProSubs as an example. You get your product manufactured at a facility in America. They then send them to your warehouse. You send them to a distributor sends them to a wholesaler, and a wholesaler sends them to make. Everyone in that chain needs to make money. And if you're selling the product for 39 quid and it's costing fucking 24 quid before taxes just in raw ingredients, it's very, very hard to make any money on that as an international distribution wholesaler type business model. However, we get it manufactured, it comes to us, and I send it out to the end user. We don't use wholesalers because we can't on that product. We make a little bit of money, but crucially, we provide a product that I genuinely, and I might be overinflating my ego here a little bit, I genuinely think reduces potential harm to end users and makes it a lot easier and simpler for. I know you guys are very clued up, but there are a lot of people out there who aren't clued up. They don't know where to start with on-cycle sports, so they just don't bother.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
So you can just say, take this.
Yeah, all in one product, everything clinically dosed, everything that you'd need, from liver to lipids to kidney in there. I think, I'm a massive fan. All of my...
I'd like to add in super vitamin K2. I'd like there to be more TUDCA and stuff, but as it stands, I'm very happy with that formula. What that does, however, is it draws attention to our other products, which are still good, but because they're a little more traditional in their dosing, the margins are, again, a little bit more in line with the traditional supplement company margin. So we produce Glycomax, which is our GDA, very, very highly dosed, but actually none of the ingredients in the GDA are massively expensive, certainly not compared to kind of the Support Max type ingredients. What I really like about our GDA, for those of you who don't know, it's just 5 ingredients: cinnamon bark extract, berberine HCl, ALA, chromium, and bitter melon. Very, very highly dosed, but you get 300 tablets in a tub. Now, although we give some serving suggestions, and actually, when I update the label, I'm going to change those based on feedback we've had from users. You can dose that however the fuck you want. So I actually find 2 tablets with every carb meal works really nicely for me. I know Joe does a double serving, so 10 tablets post-workout, but I've even got female clients who use just 1 tablet 2 or 3 times a day. I've actually got a client of mine at the moment, a guy called Aaron Clark, and he had a full medical thing today, and it flashed up that his blood glucose was sitting at like 3.6. And the person doing the medical was very confused by that, and he explained he was using a GDA, and they were completely confused by this idea. But it's very effective, but it's also very easy to manipulate to where you want it to be. And then we produce 3 pre-workouts, a stimulant-free one called Vascumax. The latest batch of which is a bit weird. We tried using betaine HCl instead of betaine anhydrous, and it's given it kind of a Tang Fastics taste. Which I love, but we'll probably not do again. And then we do Stimumax, which again 5 ingredients, clinically dosed, and we do Stimumax Pro, which is the same product but with alpha GPC added in for a little bit of extra focus and mind muscle connection. Joe's used the products, he likes them, and Support Max has drawn attention to all these other products really well.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what's in Support Max. So the main thing that stands out to me and probably everybody else that buys it is the concentration, or rather the dose of TUDCA that you put in there relative to the price.
Yeah.
So it's 250 milligrams, is it? 250
milligrams, you've got 30 full servings in there now. A lot of people buy Alpha Form TUDCA, you'll get 60 servings for £30 retail. So you've got kind of 15 quid retails worth of TUDCA in there because it's only 30 servings, which I realise makes it sound like it's not a good value, but there's other ingredients in there that are expensive as well. And then obviously you've got to remember that the retail cost of those products is not the same as the wholesale. So Alpha Form TUDCA wholesale, if you're buying £1,000 worth or more, I think is around £18 a tub. So it's about 9 quid of the cost, probably extra if you take the packaging is TUDCA, and then citrus bergamot is the next most expensive ingredient.
I love citrus bergamot. Do you know what? I've seen a big difference. Not in my lipids, because my lipids never really have a problem, but I've trialed citrus bergamot between like 500 milligram to a gram with clients and seen such a difference in lipids over time.
I tell you what, that's actually, I'm home now, guys, so none of this shitty
There
background
he is.
noise.
He's back.
Yeah. Sounds good. Anyhow, the citrus that's absolutely hands down my favorite product for just overall lipid values. I'm somebody that genetically has kind of a lower HDL. So, and that is the only product that standalone, if I take it, my HDL goes up no matter what.
Yeah. I had that conversation with someone today, actually, the guy who had his blood work done, one of the things that came up was that he had low HDL, and the person doing the blood work had said, "Oh, have a bit of salmon." Because that's what these people suggest. And I suggested that citrus bergamot would probably be more effective, so it'd be interesting to see where he's at in a month. But yeah, citrus bergamot's expensive. Nacalcysteine's not that expensive, but it's not
citrus
cheap
bergamot,
either.
is it, 500 milligrams in there, right?
500 milligrams, yeah.
Cool. Okay.
500 milligrams of bergamot. 1,000 milligrams of nacalcysteine. Now, a few people go, "Oh, I'd rather see TUDCA at 500 milligrams." In the testing that we did, we were quite extensive. Over the course of about 3 months, I got a lot of friends and people I respect and bodybuilders that were on cycle and off cycle to test a few different formulas. I actually tried one without TUDCA, and it was a little disappointing. But I found that combining nacalcysteine with TUDCA, there was definitely a synergistic effect in terms of the effect it had on liver enzymes, kidney values, and it seemed to be more effective than a higher dose of either standalone.
Okay, that's interesting.
I know nacalcystine converts to glutathione, which is your master antioxidant. So if there's less strain on everything in general, that would allow, in theory, the TUDCA to do its job more effectively. I don't know the exact nitty-gritty. All I know is the results that we saw showed definitely a synergistic effect between the two.
There's a study from 2015 on fatty liver disease in rats where they use UDCA, NAC, but they also use that resveratrol or whatever it's called. And
Resveratrol.
Yeah, and I think obviously the combination was the most had the largest significantly improved liver index.
I don't know if you've ever looked into nacalcystine as a standalone supplement. It's something I'm meaning to do. I've started looking into. I know it's big in the States, life extension stuff.
I use a lot of life extension stuff.
Well, I mean more the life extension kind of concept.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant the company. Right.
No, the life extension kind of concept.
Right.
Because I'm 30 now, so I'm aware that I'll be dead in like 30 more years if I'm lucky. And nacalcystine has a huge array of benefits that go well beyond just reducing liver enzymes a bit. And there's been studies of kind of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 milligrams a day with no negative effects. Something I'm keen to play about with myself in the future. I don't know if it's something you've looked at all.
I've never looked at it.
I'm sorry, I've used it up to 2,400 milligrams.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because it's, like you said, it converts into glutathione. Because I know over here, I don't know over there if it's really popular, but some people kind of dabble with the injectable glutathione. But from what I understand,
it's just becoming in the UK, but you need to go to like London or Birmingham.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people order it in from the US, the IV stuff.
From what I understand, it's actually, unless you do it IV, it's actually it's better. You're actually going to raise glutathione levels more readily with just taking NAC. And they talk about that on. You ever used? I'm sure you've used it, Joe. Reference like examine.com. They've talked about it on there.
Examine's really. I love Examines because you can send it to clients and just like anybody that doesn't have a grasp on like the literature, and it's so simple.
Oral glutathione is pretty worthless, but yeah, nacalcystine has a pretty good effect on systemic glutathione levels.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Another one that's in there that I like is the betaine.
Yeah. Sorry, can I go off Skype on my phone and continue talking?
Probably. He's got to Google what betaine is quickly.
No, I haven't got to Google. There was someone talking about it the other day, and I don't know if I screen grabbed it. It is the doctor that does a lot with JP, and he basically called out. I don't think I have still got it. Matt Porter posted about betaine helping with the digestion of lipids, and the doctor who does a lot with JP basically said this is bullshit. Be careful which quote unquote experts that you listen to, and he explained what it. But it helps with digestion.
I think Dr. Is it Jose Antonio from the ISSN?
No, Dr. Dean
is into it.
Yeah, I mean it helps with the production of acid in the stomach effectively.
My doctor's really good. Yep. I use it with every meal. It's basically trimethylglycine. That's
what we have listed on as in VacuMax.
So what's cool about it is actually helps with the whole methylation process. Anyone that's really into like learning about methylation, it obviously helps with digestion a lot. It helps with protein digestion a lot, but it'll lower. It's actually, from a health standpoint, it does a lot of things as far as inflammation goes, oxidative stress. It, from what I understand too, it actually lowers homocysteine levels, which is high homocysteine levels are a marker for cardiovascular disease. So there's all kinds of benefits.
Yeah, that's exactly why we changed to trimethylglycine HCl instead of anhydrous in our latest version of VacuMax because it's more potent, it's more bioavailable. Unfortunately, it's very tart in its flavour.
Okay, interesting.
But that's the version we have in Support Max. Only 500 milligrams, but it does definitely help. And then you've got hawthornberry, dandelion root extract, CQ10. All of those are kind of at token dosages. And I would suggest if someone had a specific problem that would be aided by those supplements, you might want to look at topping up the levels of those. 5,000 I use of vitamin D3, zinc and selenium.
Yeah, it's good that you got the D3 in there as well.
It's just one of those things that everyone should take, but everyone forgets to.
Yeah. Hawthornberry as well. Did you mention that? I think that's in there. Have I just made that up?
Yeah, hawthornberry, dandelion root extract, CQ10, and it is CQ10, not ubiquinol, unfortunately, and that is a cost.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that last time. Hawthornberry. I was reading something today about its use in neurodegenerative diseases, which was some new research. Yeah, that looks promising. But there's tons of older research on it, like, as you know, like for angina, blood pressure, reversing cardiac remodeling, stuff like that. So I like that one.
Yeah, it's good. Although for all those things, Fruit and Flow, I would probably still have a look at.
Yeah, can you talk about that ingredient a little bit, because that's one that I don't think a lot of people have heard of. It's if I remember correctly, isn't it a tomato extract?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
It has a similar effect on thinning the blood to aspirin. I put it in VacuMax, 3 years ago now, because I think much as all these pre-workouts that focus on pump, focus on, regardless of how they choose to do it, raising nitric oxide levels in the blood. You know, whether it's through citrulline or older products, arginine or beetroot extract or nitrates or whatever. There's only so much nitrate, so much NO you can have in the bloodstream at any one time. There's a ceiling on that. So I wanted to look at other things that help with vasodilation. And I always used to use, way back in the day, aspirin and a diurolite, and that worked really well. It still works really well. If someone wants to play about with that. Now that was probably because my electrolytes were off and diurolite helped with that. But the thinning of the blood seems to make the pump stay for longer. Again, this is anecdotal, but we've had 2 years of feedback and probably at this stage 10,000 users of the product all say very similar things. So the pump and the fullness and the vascularity seems to last a lot longer than it would with a traditional purely NO-based supplement. But on top of that, it seems to lower blood pressure very, very effectively and help with recovery. And then there's all sorts of positive health benefits to it, which I think Joe's looked into in the past.
Yeah, the thing you mentioned about aspirin, the clinical bit of research on that was 150 milligrams of that fruit flow matched up against 75 milligrams of aspirin, and they had the same like antiplatelet effects, like dead on the same, which was pretty cool. And what that fruit flow actually is, that I think is quite cool, is like, when like you cut into a tomato and there's like jelly all around the seeds, is what I hate about a tomato. It's an extract from that jelly, actually, not the flesh of the tomato, which is quite cool. Yeah.
So you'll notice that the Vascumax comes in slightly different tubs and labels to all the other products. And that's because it's produced at a different facility, because there's only one place in the UK that has a patent on manufacturing with Fruitiflow. So they've kind of got me over a barrel on that one. So we're working on a new version with white willow bark extract. Now, I thought white willow bark extract was banned because it used to be in all the kind of ECA stack clone products. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
So, ECA got banned, and then there were loads of products trying to replicate that with like Synephrine, and they all seem to use white willow bark to replace the aspirin. Because white willow bark is very, very good at thinning the blood. But when I spoke to a friend of mine at manufacturers who then spoke to Trading Standards for me, white willow bark isn't banned, it's just banned when used in combination with any kind of Synephrine or ephedrine or ephedra extract. But of its own, it's fine. So if we put it in a stimulant-free pre-workout, that's fine. We're allowed to do that.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then I think the active ingredient in that is salic acid.
We were talking about this last time, weren't we? The legality issues of ephedrine and yihimbine and stuff like that for supplement companies.
Yeah, the regulations are very, very difficult in the UK. I said to Austin last time, the way it works in the UK effectively is that you have to either prove that a supplement is safe, or if you're doing like I do, where I have a manufacturer, every single one of the ingredients that we use has to have a safety certificate and a full kind of traceability schedule, so we can say, look, these ingredients are all the things that are in this, and they're all fine to be used in the UK. In the States, you can produce whatever the fuck you want, and the FDA have to prove that it's dangerous. I believe they've tightened up on that a little bit of late. It depends on the state you're in. So it's difficult for me, because obviously American supplements leak into the UK, and I have to say to customers, I can't stock that, or I don't stock that, because it's just not worth. I've had stock compensated in the past. It's not worth my job. But customers will try and go, but the American version is much better, and quite often that is the case. And there are supplement shops, particularly smaller little supplement shops, that will specialize in bringing in American products. I even tried that angle for a little while a few years ago. But it's very, very tricky legally, and there's nothing stopping Trading Standards coming into your shop and just saying, none of this is EU compliant, we're taking all of it. So I don't stock any American formulas anymore. But it is silly, in my opinion. I would rather take an ephedrine or a 1,3-DMAA that has lots and lots of user data, and we know pretty conclusively how it works, how people respond to it. I know how I'll feel if I take DMAA. I know how I'll feel if I take ephedrine. But that's all banned in the UK now. However, weird shit like Kigelia africans or sausage fruit extract is popping up in a lot of pre-workouts at the moment. It's in Atomic Bomb by Ant Bales. And that shit's fucking crazy strong. But in a very unpredictable manner. You seem to come up and come down and come up and come down on it. But at the moment, that's fine in the UK, because it's kind of a herbal extract. I would rather just use a pharmaceutical product that I know how I'll respond to.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about something else then. What I'd like to hear your opinion on is, what I think initially drew me to use your products was like the really clear labeling of every ingredient, like no proprietary blends at all,
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
clinically dosed. So do you think that's an issue in the supplement industry, people
I
using
think
prop blends and misdosing or underdosing?
consumers consumers are much more wise to it. I'll even get people who don't look to me like they've ever been in a gym who will understand what a prop blend is and they'll know to avoid it. You do still see it in a lot of budget products. What I see is that people know prop blend bad, but they don't necessarily know the dosing they're looking for. So USN, they brought out some energy shots recently. And they asked my friend Court at Nutrition to review them, and he said, "Do you honestly want me to review them? Because Court knows his shit." And they said, "Yeah, yeah." And he's like, "You honestly want me to review these?" Honestly, he said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So he reviewed them and gave them a dog shit review because they had things like 1,000 milligrams of arginine in. But what we see is consumers know prop blend bad. As long as it tells me exactly what's in it, that's good. But if you don't know what dosing you're looking for and what ingredients are actually efficacious, the fact that it's not a prop blend is kind of pointless.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because I've seen that in a few products where they brag on no prop blends, but then I look at the dosing and I'm like, well, your dosing fucking sucks still.
Maybe you should do a fucking prop blend because it's embarrassing.
Right. I'm like, so what's the point? What's the point of bragging on full disclosure if you're disclosing underdosed products?
Yeah, and I mean, and there are some prop blend products out there that are good. Like Anabolic Designs products are semi-prop blends. I would never say that they're bad products. They're not. They're decent products.
No, they're great, but that's the thing
My-
that
my-
like led me away from Matador because I couldn't work out how to modulate my doses according to like blood glucose response with other compounds. If I wanted to add some additional berberine or something, I don't know how
Yeah.
many total milligrams of berberine that I'm taking in the stack.
Yeah, and I mean, as a rule, people used to always say, "Well, we do a proprietary blend to stop people stealing our formulas."
Yeah.
Formulas aren't complicated; they're not secret, and quite frankly, another company could get could test the formula. It cost you maybe 500-600 quid. So they're not protecting anyone. All they're doing is misleading the consumer, because the main reason you would use it would be to hide the fact that you're using very small amounts of expensive shit and large amounts of shit like creatine monohydrate. I've got a perfect example in my cupboard. I get sent shit all the time of Creacon by Mutant, which is a multifaceted creatine blend. 4.5 gram serving size, proprietary blend of number one creatine monohydrate, and then crealkaline, creatine ethyl ester, whatever the fuck, like 5 different types of creatine. But number one creatine monohydrate. So at least, well, the majority of that prop blend is creatine monohydrate, but the product retails at 30 quid instead of what you pay a tenner for 250 grams of creatine monohydrate.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There was a product a client sent me the other day asking. It was like an amino acid product, and it had like 500 milligrams of glutamine, 500 milligrams of creatine. I was like, how can they sell this?
I mean, there's all sorts of crap on the market. I'm sure you've seen like the D-Bal natural test booster. That's
brilliant. It's got whey concentrate in it.
Whey protein tablets. Yeah, it's what's worrying is the amount of money these companies make.
Whey tablets.
Yeah, and they're marketed like D-Bomb.
Yeah, and they're called. One of them's called like, what is it? Trenabal, is it? It's all named after a different anabolic steroid.
But unfortunately, a lot of companies are businesses that are run by business people. I want to make a curcumin product. I think I mentioned this when we discussed it last time. I kind of posted about it on Facebook. And the product was looking at costing me about 19 quid a tub to make, so it was going to retail at about 34.95, and it was around an 80% or a 90% curcumin extract, at 1,000 milligrams per serving with some bioprene and then maybe some ashwagandha or some cissus. And somebody who produces supplements contacted me and said, "Oh, Rick, I can make that product for much, much less." And I was dubious because good quality, high grade curcumin is expensive. And I said, "Well, by all means, send me a breakdown and let me know." And he got back to me and said, "Oh, we can. If you have 1,000 tubs, we can do it for £3.50 a tub." And I said, "Well, what strength of curcumin is that?" And it was something like 12 or 13% curcumin. But it wasn't a problem as far as he was concerned, because he said, "Well, just label it as 100% curcumin, because it is 100% turmeric extract. It's just that the curcumin content is low." And I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in doing that, because you release one bunk product and very quickly you lose all credibility. But
yeah, and I think that's what you're really riding that wave in the UK, especially at the minute. People know the efficacy behind your products. Why would you do that at this point?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But unfortunately, there are lots of companies out there that will do that. I mean, I'm sure you'll all know a gym or a supplement shop that does their own range protein that they assure you is, "We've sourced all this ourselves and it's amazing." And there's probably 10 or 15 white label companies out there that will do, a shit quality 60% whey concentrate protein and put whatever label you want on it. And I've spoken to these companies, and they'll quite often say, "What do you want in it and what do you want on the label?"
That's crazy. It was worrying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not great. And unfortunately, it makes the whole supplement industry look like con merchants.
Yeah, and it is one bad apple ruining it for the whole bunch in a lot of cases, or a few bad apples.
Yeah. I mean, I lose quite a bit of business in the shop. If you ever come to the shop, you'll see most supplement shops will have a big section on fat burners, and they'll probably also have a big section on test boosters. I don't stock any test boosters, because why? And I think at the moment I only stock Ant Bales' Thermo 9mm fat burner, because it's the only one on the market since Shreddable went that seems to be half decent. Because I don't want to sell shit products that don't work. If I was going to do that, I'd go back to selling Sky TV.
Yeah. So we've gone over what the kind of basic products that you sell are. You got some pre-workouts, the non-stim, which I love. I like StimUmax Pro as well. I'm using that in a minute because I'm just about dead by the time I get to the gym. Support Max, Glycomax is the GDA. I love the GDA. So somebody asked in the group, in fact Ben Broadhurst asked in OPD, what are some of the products Strom would produce down the line, and what products would you not produce? Now I know some products that I'd really like you to produce down the line that I've thought about.
Well, that's a conversation that we should definitely have. Maybe not on the podcast. I don't know, but I'm always open to ideas. You asked last time about whether I formulate products myself. StimUmax was entirely myself. Vascumax was myself with a bit of input from Aaron Burns, who I've worked with from Warrior. He was the one who kind of first showed me Fruited Flow. The GDA was primarily myself, but with some input from Will Carver, who's a guy I sponsor, who I've known for a long time, who I know is big into GDAs because he pushes his carbs and his insulin intake very, very high in his off-season. And then Support Mac was my formula, which Steve Crosland added citrus bergamot to. And then he also wanted to increase the Tucker to 500 milligrams. But we couldn't afford to do that and still make the product commercially viable. So I'd never be so arrogant as to say that I'm not interested in other people's ideas, because if it's a good idea and we can make it work, then fantastic. I don't see myself ever doing a protein, because there are more than enough good options on the market. I never have a problem with my clients going to my protein. We sell protein in the shop, but I just don't see the point. It's probably the thing we get asked for the most, because I think people still think that protein powders have some kind of magical power, but it's just a food source. I don't see the point, because there's enough good options out there. I am looking at a meal replacement product because I try to identify things that I need. So we've been playing about with something that's 40 grams of isolate, 20 grams of casein, 50 grams of sweet potato powder, 50 grams of oat powder, and then interestingly 10 grams of kale powder, which would give you your full recommended dose of vitamin K2.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we're playing about with that, again, because it's something that I need. I don't particularly like mass gainers, and I don't see the point in a whey protein product on its own. But certainly since I've become a father, time is much more limited than it used to be. And I have found myself using, half servings of mass gainers and stuff to make up meals. And there's nothing particularly that grabs me as being optimal. We could do a range of, like your essentials, like Blackstone Labs do it, like just a creatine monohydrate, a taurine, a cyclic dextrin, that kind of things. Those things are all quite simple to contract manufacture. But again, we're not adding anything new or exciting with that. We're just effectively making it so that while people are ordering their GDA and their support max, they can also order their cyclic dextrin and the other bits they might need for the month. I would love to do a cortisol product with ashwagandha and phosphatidylserine.
Should work with Austin on that one. He knows a lot about cortisol management and adrenal health.
Yeah. The phosphatidylserine is pretty expensive too, I would assume.
It's not cheap, yeah. I've looked at it, and to kind of do dosing of Matt Porter's product, for example, if you were to take that as a gold standard, because, regardless of what you think of Matt Porter, it's a good product. You would be looking at charging Matt Porter product prices. So you've got to then ask that question of, are we offering any benefit other than just an alternative brand, and then are we just being a bit derivative and copying him?
I have a question for you. So with the phosphatidylserine, and it may vary from the US to the UK, but are you guys allowed to use bovine derived phosphatidylserine or just soy? Because we're not allowed to use it here in the US, the bovine.
Yeah, so we're not. And interestingly, when you look at the studies, there are some things that both do quite well. I'm sure you're aware of this. And there's some things that the bovine do.
Right. Which is why I asked. Yeah, that's interesting. So,
but yeah, it would be the soy version, which leads me to question how efficacious it would really be.
I don't know. I mean, it's like I said. That's why I asked.
Athletic performance, I believe that the effect would be very similar. But in terms of actual cortisol management, I'm not totally convinced.
Right.
I'd quite like to do maybe like a 5-HTP ashwagandha wellness blend product.
Something simple like that would be really cool, like a 5-HTP, KSM 66 ashwagandha, and a lion's mane mushroom blend. That would be something really cool.
I've seen you post about mushrooms. I mean, when we first started, I thought I'd avoid anything really niche because I didn't have the audience for it. Fortunately, now with the way social media works, and I don't have the reach of any of the big guys, but I seem to have quite a niche group of people that pay attention to what we do. I think something quite niche like that now would work. If I tried to launch it 2 years ago, the people in my shop wouldn't know what I was talking about. And
yeah, I agree.
I would struggle to get purchase online, but I think we're at a point now where we could look at something quite specific like that,
I think nootropics generally are becoming quite almost fashionable now. Generally,
I've got in my box, if you want, because I got them before so we're not allowed to use them now, but I've got acetylcholine and I've got anthoractam.
Oh dear, no, definitely.
I've got big bags of raws.
Really?
Yes, Rick bought many of them before they got banned.
I'll have them.
Or not before they got banned, before anyone knew what they were.
Oh, okay. I need some of that. You'll have to hit me up off air for me to do a purchase.
Remind me, and I'll just start sending you some of your next order. But yeah, the anthoractam's interesting.
Yeah.
But that combined with, you've got to combine it with choline. If you don't, you get a massive headache.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's choline depleting or something along those lines. But the choline on its own is quite fun just to add into. It just makes everything better. It's like chocolate. Just whatever supplement you've got, add choline to it. It'll be better.
I think people are I think there was a big wave of people going into that sort of mental performance benefit area away from just the physiological performance area in
just
bodybuilding?
doesn't translate. In my experience, it just doesn't translate into gym performance, unfortunately.
No,
See,
it doesn't.
I find that it does. I think things like alpha GPC, and if we're still just talking nootropics in general, they help me in the gym a ton.
Yeah. I just don't think it was as dramatic as people thought. I think the problem is people watched Limitless and went, I want that. And that doesn't exist.
No. It's called Tren.
No, that's not the same. That's not the same.
I think we got another question for you. Oh,
yeah.
Gary asked, are most SARMs products actually tiny doses of Superdrol? If they were, I might buy some.
If you want Superdrol, then it's not hard to get. But can people stop fucking... What it is there are certain people... Superdrol and pro-hormone raws are cheaper than SARMs. So there are certain people on eBay selling SARMs that under testing have turned out to be pro-hormone. If you buy from an established, trusted brand, Alpha Form, for example, been in the game for years, that you can get full COA, so certificates of authenticity with all their products. They've been lab tested over and over again. You buy from a trusted seller, they're decent. What I get is people messaging me going, how do I know yours are good? I've seen ones on eBay for less. If you're after the cheapest thing and you want to put chemicals in your body, crack the fuck on, but don't waste my time with it. I saw someone bought some SARMs on eBay, they cracked them open and it was cherry flavoured creatine powder. Does anyone with a capping machine now can... So just buy from a trusted seller with SARMs. There's a few misconceptions that go around about them. I've covered SARMs over and over and over again, and the video that keeps reappearing in Gym Outcasts and Gain Station. And it's not a particularly scientific video, but SARMs are moderately effective. I don't know how much you've covered on them. I particularly like Osterine for females.
Totally agree.
MK677 seems to have got this really bad rap because people go, oh, well, it makes you insulin resistant. And people seem to think that insulin resistance is like a light switch where you instantly become diabetic. It's like all these things. Use it in moderation, monitor your blood glucose, make changes if you need to. But the biggest thing that I get on SARMs, and I know I've gone off topic a little bit here, the original question was about Superdrol. If Gary wants Superdrol's not hard to get by any means. The biggest question I get on SARMs is I've been told by someone has been told by X, Y, or Z that if they're not in liquid form in a dropper, that they're fake. And this stems from America. In America, they have to be in liquid form, so they're classed as research chemicals. Once you put them in a tablet, they're classed as, I don't know, bad, and you're not allowed to sell them. The raws, even in the States, when they get them in as raws, they all come as powder. So whether they're capped or suspended in a liquid makes no difference to the end product. Brands that I personally would trust in the UK, Alpha Form, Muscle Rage. I don't get on with the guys at Muscle Rage, but they make a good product. And I think that's important. It's important to be able to say that I think so-and-so is a cock, but they're good at their job. Because if someone's good at their job, they're good at their job, and you look silly saying they're not. The Muscle Rage stuff is very good. The Warrior Project's Osterine is good, but the rest I can't say because I don't know where they're made. I know their Osterine's made somewhere different. And they're the only ones I can directly comment on. I believe JW's stuff is very good as well.
Okay. I know that everything from Enhanced Athlete and Enhanced Athlete Europe has been bang on in my
I've never tried them. I've never used anything from Enhanced Athlete. I suppose because I can't decide if I like Tony Hughes or not.
I love Tony.
Yeah. I know he's your guy.
He's hilarious.
I watched some of his stuff, and I'm like, you know what? This guy just doesn't give a fuck, and he's doing what he wants, and I respect that. And then I watch his other stuff, and I'm like, someone's going to watch this and kill themselves. And can you not talk?
I know what you mean. I think Tony's thing is just freedom of information.
Yeah,
and do with it as you
but
please.
freedom of information when you're making it look really cool and sexy is when it gets a bit dangerous.
Yeah. I don't think Tony even realises that he does that, though. The thing is, he just loves it. He just loves his life and what he does. I think that's what I find so amusing about him.
I'm probably just jealous and a hater.
Well, you was at Body Power last year, wasn't you? I met up with Tony over there, and he's just hilarious.
I suspect that if I met him, I'd get on with him really well.
You'd love him. He sent me a video the other day of him up in the hills with like 12 Thai birds that he pays to follow him around. Just do stuff like that.
Mental, isn't he?
It's hilarious. This the life though, man. Like you can't blame him. You know.
So does all? I mean, I don't know if you know, but does all the money from Tony Hughes, the Ferraris, and all that, is that all from the Enhanced Athlete supplements?
No, I don't think so. He was a really successful lawyer before he ran Enhanced Athlete.
Oh wow, okay.
He was a millionaire before he owned Enhanced Athlete. But his YouTube channel revenue, I think, made him enough to live the rest of his life on.
So I was talking with a friend of mine today who is very high up at Monster, and he was saying, what could you do to make my business bigger? Because he's seen it grow. And I said, look, I'm at that point where if I could invest £100,000 in stock and branding, I could launch in Europe, America, and the UK all at once, and we could potentially grow very, very quickly, or fall on our face. But the main limiting factor I've got at the moment is I have to grow organically because I'm all self-funded.
Yeah.
But that explains why Enhanced Athlete has been able to just kind of appear and be everywhere, because it had that financial backing already set up. Because the range of products that they do is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I don't know how they get around it, but Tony, being a lawyer, somehow manages to scathe the law.
There's an awful lot of that not for human consumption stuff going on.
Yeah. They still sell Yohimbine in the UK. I don't know how they do that. And things like Arimidex and Clomid.
Yeah, well, they're prescription-only drugs. I mean,
Exactly.
I don't know if it's one of those things where they get around it or just they haven't been flagged to the relevant authorities.
They're under litigation in the US at the minute from another supplement company.
Yeah. Because that's all it takes is for a supplement company to get jealous and go, oh, well, they're selling that and we're not allowed to sell it.
Yeah, that's what's happened.
Because I can't name names, but that's what happened with Shreddable. Shreddable, everybody knew that it contained Yohimbine. Everybody knew that it shouldn't be sold in the UK. I spoke to Joe very briefly at Stoke last year, and I basically jokingly said, there's no point in anyone else bringing out a fat burner at the moment because you've killed the market. And Joe said, what do you mean I've killed the market? And I said, you brought Shreddable out, everyone loved it. Shreddable's then been banned, but nothing else comes from it. So there's no product that I can sell to consumers. And he replied with, yeah, but it's brilliant. I was like, yeah, it's brilliant, but I could repackage clembuterol and call it Strom Shreds or Shreds Max. That'd be brilliant, but I can't sell it because it's not legal in this country.
Yeah.
And that's what Joe did. And nobody cared because it was such a good product. However, another supplement company that up until that point sold a reasonably popular traditional thermogenic got pissy, flagged them to trading standards as it having Yohimbine in. It got tested and it showed as having Yohimbine in an unclassified stimulant, I believe it came up as, and it was withdrawn. All the supplement shops in the UK got letters sent round, and it was a big deal. But it was available for what, 4 or 5 months?
Quite a while.
And what we all knew that wasn't a UK compliant product.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody selling it knew that wasn't UK compliant, but no one wanted to say anything because, business.
We still have it in the US. It's the same. I think we have the same original formula here.
Yeah, you do.
So the first batch that came over to the UK, so there isn't a EU formula. The first batch that came over to the UK had an EU label on. And if you peel the EU label off, the US label was underneath. So they changed the label, but not the contents.
Mm. That's crazy. Oh.
It was a good product.
Yeah, what to do? Legally have Trenbolone in your house, but you can't use Yohimbine. Well, the person that took 200 milligrams of yohimbine is saying that, but
Yeah, how did that work out for you?
I don't want to talk about it. It was an interesting morning. Fat was
Yeah, I'd
lost.
imagine. Oh, well, there you go. That's the main thing.
It was 250 milligrams. Realising I'd done it was worse than actually doing it. You know, I started panicking, thinking I'm dead. That's it. You know, but then once I chilled out, I was all right. You know, once you accept that you just got to ride it, it's okay.
I'd rather take that much yohimbine than percentage-wise that much of an overdose of caffeine.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and such a short half-life as well. Like, I literally just watched like Dr. Scott Stevenson video on YouTube for like an hour, and then I was all right.
Right.
My
Sorry, did you say
heart
you had
was
some-
literally coming out my chest.
Could you imagine if it was nicotine?
Oh Jesus! Don't.
That would
250 milligrams of nicotine.
Well, you
Or
say
even
that, I mean, so I kind of got into smoking cigars at Christmas because I thought it looked big and clever, which it does.
on your motorbike,
Yeah, exactly.
like Arnie.
You know where I'm at.
Leather jacket
Yeah.
on.
So for my birthday, my partner took me to a burger restaurant near here where they've got outside lamps, so I could sit outside on the terrace, drinking whiskey and smoking a cigar. So I smoked this big, fat, fuck-off Cuban cigar that she got me, which was about 90 milligrams of nicotine.
90.
Jesus.
Yeah.
90.
90 to 100 milligrams.
2 milligrams and I'm off it.
And I came home, threw up, and went to bed at 8:30 on my birthday.
How do you go to bed? The
No
only thing
shit.
I slept like a baby.
What? When I take nicotine, I just become hyper-focused on something. I could never sleep.
I think it's different when you're a smoker.
Yeah, probably is.
I don't know how. I mean, I'm not really a smoker. I just think it looks cool on a motorbike.
Nicotine is a sedative in a high enough dose, though. It actually has both stimulant and sedative depending on the dose.
Honestly, I felt
I didn't
terrible.
know that. That's interesting.
I felt terrible. I thought it'd be cool to smoke a big cigar on my birthday, and I didn't realise how much more nicotine there is in a big cigar versus a cigarette.
The first time I took a 2 milligram nicotine gum, I threw up.
Yeah, no, I was pretty rough.
90.
And I felt like a hangover from it the next day.
I bet you did. Jesus. Well, that's both of our weekly overdose stories.
While I've got you, if I can ask a quick question. You know Alex Hilton Johnson, don't you?
Yes.
So he's Mr. UK Peptides. He's wanting some supplements and bits and bobs that we do, and he has asked if I need any peptides in exchange. Swapsies. Everyone likes swapsies.
Right.
And he is mad keen on his IGF-1.
Right.
And I know you've dabbled with it, but I can't remember seeing what your kind of final feedback on it, whether it was something worth bothering with or not.
I'm going to be honest with you. I've never used IGF-1 derivatives. I don't think they have any efficacy in bodybuilding myself. So
I used it once before, but he only sent me a sample tub, and I got really fucking pumped. But
yeah, well, the
that's
fact that
not
it's going to be
related.
insulin-like is somewhat why it's going to get pumped, but I can't see IGF-1 from research chemical companies coming from facilities using recombinant technologies to produce them for them to even be humanly bioavailable.
So
The
next
thing
question
is, even Increlex pharma grade does next to nothing when you look at the autocrine and paracrine IGF-1 stimulation in comparison to human growth hormone, because it doesn't account for the IGF-BP3, which is the ternary system that is required for the IGF to move outside of the injected tissue. There's a newer product called iPlex that has both IGF-1 and IGF-BP3, but the price is ridiculous. You'd never use that. For localized IGF-1, still the only efficacious thing that we've got is growth hormone, anabolics, and insulin.
Yeah. I'll probably stock up on BPC 157 then.
I would, and I've used this BPC and it's great. But I
Um,
personally, just my personal views on
no, that's
IGF-1
why I
derivatives.
asked.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got the ability to get hold of Increlex, but the cost is pretty high.
But Increlex
I've
has
got
the same problem. It is recombinant, but again, it doesn't have the ternary system for it to move outside of the injected tissue.
Yeah, and I've got quite a lot of growth hormone stashed away, so
You might as
play
well
about
use
with that.
growth hormone for the price. Just for the simple localized IGF-1, a combination of exogenous anabolics and growth hormone is going to do more.
Yeah, training and eating properly would probably do more for me at this stage, but
Yeah.
such is life. Before we finish, did you have any other questions that you've been asked?
No, but if you'd like to plug yourself in any which way possible, that would be really cool.
Well, if people who listen to the OPD podcast want to order any of our products, you can go to www.sportsfuel.org, and if you use the code PREP, that will give you free shipping on anything other than Support Max, or it will knock you a little bit off if you buy 2 tubs or more of Support Max. It's not a big saving, but we don't run to big margins. If you are a US or European-based customer, there's a contact us form on the website. If you fill that in, send it in, that'll come through to me, and I can arrange for stuff to be shipped out privately, because the website doesn't support that. Sorry I haven't been as animated as the first time we recorded this podcast. I'm very sleepy.
Yeah, me too. They don't know that, though. They don't know that. So it's
Well,
cool.
the first one was brilliant, so just imagine this, but a bit better, and that's where we're at for the first one.
It's all right. We're both tired, but I think the point came across well.
Well, I'll leave you and Austin to do bro jobs or whatever it
Yeah,
is you're doing.
we're gonna talk science.
Oh, okay, no,
Yep.
I'm fucked now.
Oh yeah. All right, Rich. Nice one, mate. Thanks for coming on.
No, pleasure as always, and nice to speak to you again, Austin. And I will see you guys at Body Power.
Yeah, man.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you later, mate. Bye bye. Right, Austin. What's going on, man?
Well, it has been a pretty chaotic week so far.
Why is that? You've been clearing out the gym, right?
Yeah, that's part of it. Just trying to get all that cleared out, and then the basically moved all 20. It was like 25 pairs of dumbbells, all of our plates, and all that stuff last night in pouring down rain.
Oh. That expenditure, though.
That was, yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's what I kept telling myself. That's exactly what I was
Take some Yihim beam
kept-
before you did it.
right. I kept thinking, here's to my need levels.
Yeah. Give yourself
But-
a few extra oats that day.
Right. But yeah, I mean, everything's pretty good. So I have trying to solidify some more things in prep, and as far as like time frames and all that. So
Cool.
figuring it out, trying to figure out my schedule, now that the last 2 days I've been just working from home completely and trying to figure out like when I'm going to train normally and all that stuff again, so.
Yeah, so you're going to move the times around because you normally train like what, midday your time or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I'm still going to train midday though. So it just seems like midday is kind of the slowest as far as emails. I always get an influx in the morning, obviously, and then midday, not as much, and then kind of in the afternoon. So I figure I can just pretty much stay midday, or unless I'm training with Jerica, and then I'll train in the evening. But I mean, not really. I mean, not a lot really changes. I mean, I'll be home. I mean, other than that, I mean, my business and stuff doesn't really change a whole lot, to be honest.
Cool.
A lot less stress. That's good.
Yeah, you'll be looking better for sure.
I'll probably lose 5 fucking pounds in the next week just from stress reduction.
You'll probably gain 5 pounds of tissue at the same time.
Or maybe, hopefully.
Saw a picture of you yesterday. You're looking solid. You're looking quite improved from last year already, from this far out.
Yeah, so I looked at the one of my most musculars from last year, and I had the comparison, just like looking at the fullness and roundness, looking at like from my arms to my chest and stuff, the gaps in there, and everything's more filled in and tight. There's less gaps. You can't really see air.
You look denser, but you've always had that like dense, like I said to you, it's almost like a Meadows or like Dorian-esque, like dense tissue, but there's more of it now.
Right. So, and then obviously it'll get even better once I get a little bit leaner, and I tend to get when I ramp things up, like I tend to get vascular to an extent. Like last year was weird because that was the first year that I got really grainy and vascular. But
why was that?
I don't know. So we should
just your condition.
I don't know. I honestly don't know, because like if separation wise, I don't think I was any leaner, as far as like everything being the lines that I had. So I don't know. It's interesting, but I just contacted just got a hold of Jason Theobald, and I'm gonna work with him to the later part of the prep. So.
Oh, cool. That's good.
Yeah.
Jason's a great coach.
Yeah. Yeah, and he dials shit in, and he's very level-headed as far as when it comes to like, keeping stress in check and all that. So it's good. It's good for me. I don't really have to think about it, and I know exactly what my body does. So I mean, I'll be able to give him good feedback, and should be pretty easy, I would think.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah, Jason will do you right. His clients always come in peeled. Who was that pro that he dieted in this year? What was that bloke's name?
Brad?
Yes. He just missed out on the top 5 or something, didn't he? But he looked insane, like really thick back. Are we thinking the same person?
Yeah, Brad Davis is his name.
Yeah, Brad Davis. Yeah. I was following him. He brought him.
He actually
tight as hell.
I saw him compete a couple times as a light heavyweight when he was an amateur, and he was never in shape. Like he was always really soft from the back, but he was so fucking huge that, especially in the amateurs, because he's like 5'2", 5'3", and he was packed light heavyweight at like 5'2" or 3, and was just huge. And now, he fits into the 212s pretty good, I think.
No, he looked awesome. Definitely some goals there. Yeah. So we're both just heading on down this long road of cutting body fat. Sucks, man.
Yeah. So the topic that you wanted to talk about kind of goes along with what you're doing right now, I think.
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah, exactly. So, guys, today we want to talk a little bit about rapid fat loss strategies. Something that was probably popularized mostly in modern physique world by Lyle McDonald. So we could possibly talk about how and when they are applicable, how you can use them, what people are best suited to use them, dietary strategies, drug strategies, training strategies, cardio strategies, whatever, but try and sort of condense it more so for you guys to put it on an individual basis and work out for yourself if this is something that you want to do or how you can include it. So yeah, we can dig into that because I'm a fan, but I think they get an unfair demonization. I think for specific circumstances they're really useful. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say. I think there's just some misconceptions about what they do and what they don't do. You have the camp. You have the camp of, oh, you're going to lose all your muscle tissue. You have that camp, and then you have the camp that might use it too liberally, and because it's definitely not something that you can't use it for long, and you can't use it all the time. So there's definitely some drawbacks, but there's a lot of advantages too.
So why don't we define what a rapid fat loss phase is first off? So it's probably something where you're going to be losing greater than 1% of your total body weight per week, which is generally like the upper end of what's recommended for most people. obviously this rate is variable, but rapid being, somewhere in the 2+ pounds range for a normal, I say normal, maybe around a 200-pound size bodybuilder. Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that's relatively accurate. I think that there's some general things that I definitely tell people when we do a rapid fat loss phase. I think in most cases, and I'm sure you probably agree, we're going to use it most often in like the mini cut situation, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
And like pretty much 99% of the time, my goal with it would be to lose as much body fat as possible quickly before the body starts to form a lot of those negative metabolic adaptations that we don't want. So, and that's the thing. We know that prolonged periods of large deficits are going to really be ideal metabolic environment. We know it's slow, as far as leptin levels, your thyroid, just your metabolism overall. So we want to kind of get in and get out, if you will. I think that with a lot of people, in my experience, I can do, and I'm only going to use a mini. I should say this too. I'm probably only going to use this type of really fast approach with someone that's not carrying a lot of body fat to begin with. Somebody that has a ton of body fat to lose, like if they need to lose 50 pounds, we're not going to use a rapid fat loss, approach in a mini cut, just because the whole adaptation thing is just, that's not going to work for us. We need a traditional slower cut. But
right. Yeah. I'd say that's mostly for adherence purposes. I've had a couple of clients I've worked with that have had like significantly high body fats, and they've had something flag up on their health markers and they're determined to get it down. I'll do something like a protein sparing modifying fast with 2 days of surplus in the week, just to negate any like negative hormonal metabolic adaptations, just for like that maximal output off the bat, only if I know that they can adhere to it, But generally, you don't need to do that with someone that's fat, because even like someone that's like holding a high level of body fat, because even like a small dip into a deficit is going to be, one, a huge lifestyle change that they might not be able to adhere to because they've been overeating for so long. Two, that's going to be a novel stimulus, more than enough to set off good habits for the future for them to start dropping and even accruing muscle tissue with how much additional energy they have available, like substrate that they just have available on their physiological self at the time, So yeah, probably a case for planning it on a case-by-case basis. Like if the person is such a high body fat that it's risking their health, but they can absolutely be adherent to a program like this, then it can work if you modulate in those surplus days to prevent any hormonal downregulation. But definitely not necessary, and probably not usually going to be the best option. Like you said, I like using it as a mini cut in clients that have just maybe been gaining for a while and accrued a bit of body fat and just need to clean it up pretty quick.
Yeah. And that's the goal. I mean, it's like you said, I mean, there's definitely benefits of losing body fat as far as your health markers go. I mean, pretty much every one of the negative health markers is going to improve if you lose body fat. I mean, for the most part, if we look at obese, just a person that's generally obese, if their blood glucose, lipids, basically any marker, let's assume they're not using a bunch of PEDs, they're going to pretty much see all of those improve if they lose body fat. And I know that if you look in the medical community, they've used protein sparing modified fast for people that are basically going to die if they don't lose weight.
Well, have you seen the study on that? It's a case study on the man that was 370 odd pounds and he didn't eat anything for over a year, nothing. And
that's interesting. So what was the result?
Yeah, lost a ton of body fat, and he managed to maintain it at the end, and his health markers were massively improved. All of his energy substrate just came from his stored body fat. He ended up at 190 pounds, I think, after just over a year. No food. They just gave him some basic vitamins and water and tea. I think it was
Wow.
370 days, something like that. But there are other fasting case studies where, unfortunately, at the other end, somebody's binged, and like a few people have killed themselves doing that legitimately. But this one case study was really good because the guy was so adherent. Obviously, that's on like the complete extreme side of things. Nobody's going to fast for over a year, but it just shows that it's possible and healthy in some circumstances. All his health markers improved because he was, morbidly obese, and he had more than enough stored energy to fuel himself for that year.
Right. Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah, I do wonder about relative nutrient deficiencies. You'd have to really cover your back, filling in the blanks, and obviously that's a totally unadherable program to 99% of the modern world. But I think there's a fear of eating low calories as well that's really unwarranted. Almost like we're addicted to eating at this stage, especially in the bodybuilding world. People think if they go 6 hours without eating, all their muscles are going to fall off. But yeah, it's really unwarranted, as we can see in these case studies. Obviously, it's not on our population group, but there's carryover.
Well, now it's funny because I think people just kind of latch on to these ideas and what other people say without any kind of research or experience. Because if you look I'm not even going to say 5 years ago, probably 3 years ago, and you talked about fasting, people would laugh at you. And now look how many people are talking about fasting like there's some fasting guru, and they know, like, it's the best thing in the world, when really it has been beneficial forever. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with any kind of trend. Ketogenic diets, protein sparing, modified fasts, fasting. I mean, all that stuff it's all applicable. That's the thing, is people just kind of go through these phases where maybe it's social media that spreads it around. I think that's part of it, but they think that something's so amazing and then it kind of dies out. But in all reality, I mean, like all of these things have their place.
Yeah, they're all modalities that can be used to bring down calories. Like fasting, so easy to implement to keep appetite down and just cut out a large part of your day that you could be eating, alongside the other metabolic flexibility and insulin sensitizing benefits, and even the AMPK anti-aging life extension benefits. Pretty cool.
That's another thing, looking at, like, it's not really from an aging standpoint, like, it's not very good to be in a calorie surplus all the time.
No, and constantly stimulating mTOR,
Right, exactly. So like all these things, like fasting, for example, where you can absolutely still gain tissue if you have some fast periods during the week. There's no reason that you can't still gain muscle tissue, but you can also shut off mTOR and activate AMPK, at least for brief periods, to kind of counteract some of those negatives. But it's the same thing in these rapid fat loss phases. I think too that there's definitely a massive health benefit, because if you think about a lot of enhanced bodybuilders, so they come off, like, in an ideal world, maybe they do a blast and then they cruise for a little bit around, maintenance calories, just to kind of maintain those gains. At least that's what I like to see. And then they go into their fat loss phase after that. So at that point, one of the things they want to do is improve their health markers, because most likely after they get done losing fat, they want to probably go back to blast again. And yeah, I mean, why not lose fat as quickly as you can, improve your health markers? I mean, you can kind of get the best of both worlds that way. I mean, you're still cruising for a good amount of time. It's not like it's a 4 weeks off only type of thing, but it also doesn't, you don't have to do a 20-week cutting phase. Like, that's ridiculously drawn out.
No, I completely agree with that. Such a good way to use a cruise, even to reverse some of the negative adaptations of, like, the drug use, like cardiac remodeling and stuff. When you look at things like HIT cardio for the fibrotic properties of reversing cardiac remodeling, including HIT as part of your fat loss phase to improve that aspect, or improving your lipids or everything else, or even getting your insulin sensitivity up and your nutrient partitioning up, so that when you do hit that blast again, you're just primed in the right state to gain tissue, you know. But yeah, it's the perfect use of a cruise in my opinion. But going into drug use, I think this is where people kind of shit themselves a bit and think, no, I can't lose a bunch of weight on TRT doses because I'm going to lose tons of muscle. But I don't think we have any decent evidence to show that. In fact, to the contrary, I think if you look at the case studies on natural bodybuilders, even in females that we've got, they always end up, the males, hypogonadal and hormonally downregulated. But something that you don't see on their DEXAs is actual loss of muscle tissue. You see loss of lean body mass via water, glycogen, blood volume, things like that. But actual muscle tissue, I think to really lose muscle tissue, you'd have to be taking the piss, eating some kind of low protein diet, not resistance training. You know, I think the fear of losing muscle is likely one of the most overblown things in bodybuilding today.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the protein sparing part comes into play. And you don't necessarily have to use a PSMF type approach for this rapid fat loss. That's just one example. I mean, you can still have carbohydrates and stuff in the diet, because if someone's ending their surplus phase and they're eating 5,000 or 6,000 calories, then no, I mean, I'm not going to drop them to just protein. That's ridiculous. Yeah. So, you know, but relative to what they were doing, as long as there's sufficient protein in the diet, and maybe even like what we've experimented with, maybe even increased protein for additional thermic effect. And, you know, it's...
Yes. I was reading a new study on this today from the ISSN, from Dr. Jose Antonio, where they had subjects that were all resistance training on the same program. Now, let me try and remember this, because I was reading it whilst I was doing cardio this morning. Protein ranged from 1 gram per pound up to 2 grams per pound, which is a lot, you know. For me, that would be 400 grams of protein a day, which is just a little bit above what I'm doing. Calories from carbohydrates and fat were matched. Now, what was interesting was they were both in all the groups were in a caloric surplus, but so all the groups gained the same amount of muscle mass from, let me think, it was from 2.5 grams of protein per kilo up to 4 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So the mass gain, the hypertrophy, the skeletal muscle tissue gain was the same. So it looks like the hypertrophic benefits top out at about 2.5 grams of protein per kilo. But what was interesting was the higher protein group up at the 4 grams per kilo, which is like 2.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So for me, that would be like 440 grams of protein, which is a lot. They lost the greatest fat mass, and they actually doubled the loss of fat mass compared to the 2.5 grams per kilogram group. And they found no ceiling dose, because they only went as high as that. So I don't know if there's any more, but and the researchers were theorizing that it wasn't just from the thermic effect of food, but somehow this protein intake was causing an increase in non-exercise activated thermogenesis, which I thought was really interesting. But again, that correlates with what we've seen again from those new protein overfeeding studies, that the thermic effect almost overtakes the caloric content of the food, which I find super interesting, because if you'd have told me that a year ago, I'd have said bollocks, thermodynamics, blah, 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 blah. But again...
Yeah, I think because I think the Dr. Scott talked about this recently. I think the review that he did on it, they went up to that 4 gram per kilo mark. I believe that's kind of the standard on all the protein overfeeding stuff right now.
Yeah. And they were
so what is that?
Increase in protein and decrease in carbohydrate at the net same calorie, but no in body fat dropping.
So in reality, 4 grams or 4 grams per kilo. So
it's
for me,
2.2 grams per pound.
That would be, that would put me at almost, almost 400 grams. But is that for based on lean body mass or just total body weight?
No, it was total body weight in this study.
Yeah. So yeah, in a surplus, like in a normal gaining phase, that would probably put me over 400 400 grams. I mean, that's pretty high.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, and they saw the greatest amount of fat mass lost. And yeah, I wonder where the ceiling is there. So talking about protein sparing, is that like how you like to set up some of your clients' diets that are doing rapid fat loss? Because that's the kind of classic, isn't it? An RFL style, low fat, low carb, regular protein bolus with like 1 day at a surplus of carbohydrate. Is that kind of like the way you like doing things?
yeah, it's hard to say, because I think what I referenced earlier is it kind of goes back to whatever they were doing at the end of the off season. Like, so in your case,
Definitely.
in your case, I wouldn't have just dropped all your energy substrate out. I wouldn't have just dropped all your protein, or I'm sorry, all your carbs and your fats out immediately, because that would create an absolutely ridiculous deficit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now, in the case of
with those days of fasting, 2 days a
Right.
week of eating nothing.
right, exactly. So, but I would say someone with just a generally normal average metabolism, yeah, I would kind of lean towards that. I might say I would probably take out whatever macro that they utilize best. I would leave that in, whether it's protein or carbs, and then I would just, maybe on my next adjustment, take that out, because I found that for most people, these are the people that don't have a ton of body fat to lose. If I use a type of rapid phase, if you will, I can normally get it done in, we'll say, a max of like 3 to 4 adjustments, maybe 5 max. Whereas if we're doing someone has a lot of body fat and it's a really long drawn out cut, I mean, we could have adjustments. I mean, shit, we could have 10, 15 different adjustments throughout the cut. But I mean, yeah, I would. Now, somebody like me, for example, I would probably lean towards going straight into that type of approach, because I just know what my tendencies are to adapt quickly. So my goal would be smash that deficit as hard as I can, as fast as I can, because I know that my body will adapt extremely fast. So a modest deficit's pretty much pointless.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same boat from my previous experience as that. It takes me weeks and weeks and weeks to find the deficit, and even then I'm just constantly having to tune it. I think it's better for me just to drop into a pretty hard deficit and get it done.
Yeah. I mean, how much did you drop on that first change that we made? It was pretty drastic. I don't recall the exact weight, but I mean, it was pretty drastic.
That first change we made, I dropped about 15 pounds off the bat. But I always hold about 15 pounds of just shit anyway. And then we made 2 adjustments since then. I think I've done about 2 pounds on each adjustment from there. But I am really adaptive. It's frustrating. I say,
yeah, well,
to you,
you're preaching to the choir. It's we'll go as low as we need to, I think. And another thing with just that adaptability is that, in general, people that are very adaptive in terms of a deficit are normally adaptive in terms of a surplus too. So you shouldn't be afraid to push it in those phases. And I try to get that through to people. Unless you've done something absolutely ridiculous for a very long period of time and created some extremely hard adaptations to reverse, then your metabolism is going to adapt upwards just like it adapted downwards. You know what I mean? It's gonna do the same thing in reverse fashion.
For sure. So talking about adaptations and things to do with like the thyroidal axes or CAMP or leptin or ghrelin, how would you like to put refeeds in for clients that are doing rapid fat loss phases? Maybe more along the lines of like a protein sparing modified fast where, things are going to downregulate pretty quickly.
So in that case, I probably wouldn't do any really big refeeds at first, because I know that they're not going to adapt too quickly. I might do something just for, well, there's 2 reasons. there's two reasons I might do a smaller refeeds or more normal refeeds. Is I don't like I don't like people to stay 100% depleted all the time, because I do think that without at least filling glycogen once in a while, that the cells are a little bit less receptive to glucose. And I do think at that point you might tread around that muscle loss, so I'll throw in basically just for the glycogen. That's it. So I'll throw in small refeeds for glycogen and psychological effect. It gives them something in there because they're basically strategically starving. And after that point, once we get a little further into it, that's where the more metabolic refeeds come in. The stuff that you and I like to use, the two-day surplus type of 2-day surplus type of deal. I've even had people do 3-day surpluses. I've even had people do slightly above maintenance for a week type thing. I mean, it kind of depends on their time frame. If I know someone's super patient and they'll work with me on stuff, then we can do those type of things. But in general, yeah, I wouldn't really throw in like those metabolic based refeeds, if you want to call them that, until probably things start to stall a little bit harder,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm generally on the same page. I might just use like a single high carb meal just for the glycogen effects, but I'll kind of clear away from those full day or multiple day high carbohydrate surplus periods unless the individual really needs it. Again, we're just talking off-season mini-cut situation here. I wouldn't do something like this in a prep where maybe I know that the deficit is going to be going on for weeks and weeks ahead, and especially not if a client's using like exogenous T3 and T4, then the hormonal issues become a lot less of an issue,
So on that note too, let's maybe touch on the supplement part real quick of those rapid fat loss. I don't know what you like to do personally, and again, it is person dependent. As far as like how long the phase is, I might not have to use anything.
Yeah.
I might just, and that's great. That's fine if I don't have to use anything. Might use, for some people, I'll kind of throw them the gamut, like right off the bat. I'll throw in the Yohimbine protocol with fasted cardio.
Yeah.
And throw in, that's an easy one. Like that's an easy one you can throw in right off the bat. I mean, if it's not going to be a super long cut, I can pretty much assure them that we can use that the whole way through. So that's a quick one to add in. I probably wouldn't. I'm not going to say I'm not going to, but I mean, people could also use like DNP would be an easy one to throw in for rapid fat loss, because you could pretty much, I think for most people, if they used a moderate enough dose, they could pretty much just run it the whole way.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, that has to be dosing dependent. Like you absolutely wouldn't want to do anything. Like the goal would be use a dose that you essentially can't feel very much.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be hard enough without the tiresome toll of DNP. But I think DNP, again, like full disclaimer, it's completely person dependent. But if you're quite knowledgeable on what DNP doses do to you and your strength and how you feel and your biofeedback and how you sleep, blah, 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 DNP is a good one here, especially if you're only using cruise doses, as it does generally have some interesting anti-catabolic effects in terms of protein sparing and also in terms of glucose metabolism and putting more glucose into the muscle cell at a time when your carbohydrates are going to be super low. So DNP is definitely a good one, plus just how large of a dent on your BMR it can make at relative lower dosages with relatively lower stim-like effects from other things when you're likely going to be using other stimulants anyway just to get yourself through something that's quite harsh. I think it slots in quite nicely.
Yeah, and that would, I think the only, that would kind of bring us to exogenous thyroid.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one, because you and I had a little talk about it, and we found that it definitely was beneficial at a point. Like I think I think especially the longer somebody was on the DMP, the more necessary it was to make sure that
Yeah,
thyroid was.
that human research on DMP showed that both T3 and T4 do downregulate with DMP use by day 2 of DMP supplementation, but that didn't affect the BMR increase on paper, so not really such a big deal. You can use DMP without exogenous thyroid just fine, but just be aware that as your thyroid downregulates, you'll probably already be in a position of downregulated thyroid with DMP use. So you may just get a little bit more bang for your buck, or you may feel a bit better, and it might help with the fatigue in my experience as you do head more into those hypothyroid levels. One thing I will say though is I'm really not a fan of T3 without T4 these days, just for multiple other bodily functions that the thyroidal axis is involved in, like the brain, and I think discounting the whole process of like removing the iodine molecule from the thyroxine itself is just not a good move. I think we need to replace everything if we're going to be doing thyroid replacement. So there is that with DMP. Also, you might want to consider using exogenous thyroid if you want to use it for its synergy on like the beta-2 adrenergic system. So if you are using something like clenbuterol, or you are using something like exogenous growth hormone, which is another one that I think we should touch on, because exogenous growth hormone, of course, works so good in fasting states for free fatty acid mobilization along non-glucose intensive exercise, like low intensity steady state cardio. Like growth hormone in combination with yohimbine and caffeine with fasted exercise and extended fast is an extremely potent way to mobilize fatty acids. Then if you've got exogenous thyroid in there as well, acting upon the same system, or clenbuterol, then you do have a very potent stack that's going to stack up very well with extended fasting periods if you are using them.
Yeah, you have to make sure that you're fasting long enough. I think yohimbine works relatively quick, but for the growth hormone, I think it's important for people to make sure that they're having sufficient time without eating, for really get the full effect.
Well, you're looking at the free fatty acid mobilization peaking around the 120, 140 minute mark, I believe. And then by the time you're hitting 3 hours, it's starting to come down, but you'll still be significantly elevated 6 hours later, all the way up to 8 hours later. And it's not like an on-off switch like endogenous growth hormone. Like if you do eat, it will significantly reduce, but not to baseline like it would with endogenous. But if you want to get the most bang for your buck, then yeah, you really should be fasting at the very least 3 or 4 hours with exogenous growth hormone. But I personally like to... I'll give you guys an idea of the way I'm structuring my rapid fat loss at the minute. So I've gone from eating like 6 meals a day to eating quite literally 2. So I'll wake up, take growth hormone, I'll wait 6-7 hours, I'll eat a pre-workout meal, I'll train, I'll eat a post-workout meal, I then won't eat for 4 hours, I'll go to bed and take growth hormone again and fast through the night. So at both ends of the spectrum, I'm getting a long fast with the growth hormone, So definitely you could set yourself up that way if you are using exogenous growth hormone.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a relatively good approach. It's not really hard to, even if they're not fasting or going that low in meal frequency, it's not really that difficult to get at least 3 to 4 hours in there for the free fatty acid mobilization. It's not that hard.
No.
Yeah, and then in that case too, that's when we could add something like nicotine in for appetite suppression.
Yeah. And it does also act on the same pathway, the beta adrenergic pathway via catecholamines. So again, another nice synergy.
Yep. There is a slight fat loss benefit to nicotine. It's not anything to write home about, but I mean, the appetite suppression is absolutely fantastic. And the thing is, like, a lot of people, they already cognitively, they function good in a fast already. So if you add something in there that has that extreme cognitive kind of boost, if you will, like nicotine, I mean, you can get some shit done without eating at all.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
big time.
Yeah. But and it's like essentially all this is your strategic. I mean, it's strategic starvation. I mean, more or less.
And I'll tell you the weirdest thing that I noticed with these rapid fat loss phases with clients is they always tell me how good they feel when you always go in thinking the opposite.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's always like
Usually,
how clear-headed they feel, and even how training improves, and I always find that really strange.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time too, I don't think the training would even take any kind of hit for a lot of people until much later. If they sustained it a long enough time, it probably would. But yeah, it is crazy because you could literally take somebody that's eating, 5,000 calories, and then you drop them to sub 3,000 right off the bat. Like you almost cut their calories in half, 2,800 or whatever you end up putting them at. And they're cruising. Now they're hitting PRs every day or close.
Well, that's what's been happening to me this fat loss phase, and it's awesome. Even though I'm hungry as hell in the day, my training's been really strong.
You know what though? I attribute some of that. I think I honestly attribute some of that to stress response from the body, as far as like cortisol and adrenaline release, just in response to you being in kind of a quote unquote starved fit, state.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. Like if you look from the mechanistic type standpoint, like that's always what's made sense to me. And then I think the other part of it's obviously that your digestive system's not bogged down. The blood in general can get to the tissue a lot better because it's not always in the GI tract trying to digest food. Even for that matter, I mean, I can get, and not even just in a rapid fat loss phase, but just in general, like I've had some of my best pumps in a workout fasted.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And I'm not saying that's across the board, because I know that I have some clients that's absolutely not true for them. But just for people that have maybe a kind of a mesomorphic or endomorphic type of tendencies, they tend to do really well with that type of thing.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing. I think we were talking about that on Jason's status the other day.
Yeah, because he's opposite though. He's very much like, I know that he's told me with age his metabolism has slowed down some, but he's very much the ectomorphic type tendencies if you want to look at the body type. But I'm not. I'm kind of meso endo mix, I would say, if there was a such thing.
I don't have a clue what I am. I don't really know how these things work.
Yeah.
I've never paid attention to them. But I think we've just about covered rapid fat loss phases. Just to anyone listening, if you do want to do this, I'd just not be afraid to really dig deep for a period just to get shit done, because you set your mind to it and muscle's not going to be falling off of you or anything like this.
Yep, I would agree. I don't really have a lot to add. I don't think.
No. And I think just keep it simple. Slash your calories, keep protein high, keep training hard, and you'll be just fine. Maybe
agree.
touch on, I think a lot of people wonder about anabolics use on rapid fat loss phases. I don't really see a massive need for super physiological dosages. Of course, they will offer some additional protection against muscle tissue loss, but I don't really think that's a big risk. I'd personally rather see somebody run cruise doses, whatever that may be to you, scale to your lean body mass. Like I can hold lean body mass on 200 milligrams just fine. If you're 280 pounds lean, then you probably can't, if your genetics don't allow it. But just your lower cruise dose is absolutely fine. To use it as like a bridge between blasts, I think works really well. I don't know if you'd agree.
In my honest opinion, I really don't even have anyone use any kind of super physiological doses in a cut at all.
Yeah, it's just not necessary, I don't think.
No, it's rare. It's rare that I would. Like there might be a select few circumstances. Obviously, contest prep is a little bit different. You would, but even then, like I've changed my views over the years. I don't think that the whole traditional you have to run a cycle for 16 to 20 weeks before the show. Like I've changed my views on that. I don't think that I just don't think that it's necessary. If you can't, it's not going to offer much outside of cosmetic benefit, but I really don't give a shit if the cosmetic benefit is the last 8 weeks instead of 16 weeks. Like it makes no difference to me. The only thing that's going to change is that my health markers are going to take a hell of a lot less hit.
Yeah, and a couple of things to consider there is like one, more anabolics will equal more hunger in general, which you don't want in a contest prep. But there is some trade-off because androgens do obviously bind at fat cells to exhibit some lipolytic effects, but in general they're minor. They're not like what you're going to get from like a DMP or a growth hormone or something like that. So like, even if you're in a prep, maybe you just want to run something like at the most 300 milligrams of testosterone or something that's just going to put you on like the high end of the super physiological scale, and then bring in your primos or your tren or your DHT derivatives or whatever you're going to do later, at the most, even though you don't even really need to do that. You definitely don't need to be blasting everything from the get-go. Definitely not 16 weeks out, for sure.
Yeah. And I know that's kind of the traditional cycle thing, 12, 16, 20 weeks or whatever. And I just don't see the point anymore. It just doesn't make sense at all, actually.
No. The only thing I've done with clients is like possibly add some master on with their cruise test dosages if they're estrogenic or something like that. Just to avoid the use of aromatase inhibitors long term. And that's about it. That's as far as I'll go for something like this. I think that's about it. I think we've just about covered mini cut / rapid fat loss here. We've been going nearly 2 hours now. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, let's cut it off. I'm done. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
No, me neither. I'm gonna go to bed and probably shoot you an email in the morning crying if I haven't hit a new low weigh-in after fasting today.
All right. I'll can't wait.
Nice one, mate.
Nice one. That was sarcasm, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I bet. Maybe I'll... It'll be the first email you wake up to because I'll send it at like 8 a.m. my time and you'll get it at like 5 a.m. your time.
I don't know. I think there's somebody, I don't know. There's some people send them overnight, like in the middle of the night, I swear, and I get them in the morning, which I don't know. One person in particular, I'll probably have at least 3 emails from in the morning. Never fails.
Yeah. I get a feeling I know what you're on about, but yeah. Mine will be pretty simple, like, Austin, make me eat less because I didn't weigh less this morning. Yeah, all right, nice one. Yeah, cool, good episode. And thanks Richard again for coming on. Thanks to our sponsors, Metaform. Oh, by the way, guys, whilst I'm here, check out compact.store. It's Jasmine's new business. It's the one-stop shop for all competitors. Women's is launched. Men's is coming out. Everything you could possibly need for your show day is up there now. I think we've got a few free delivery orders left. Not many, though, so get them in if you want them quick. And you've got a show day coming up. That's compact, KOMPAK.store. UK and US and Europe shipping is all available. So, yeah, hit us up for absolutely anything you need on your show day. Anything from bikinis to rice cakes to extension cables to just about fucking anything. Yeah.
Yep.
Good stuff. Nice one. Thanks as always, Austin. Thanks everybody for listening. Check out all the social media links below. Please keep your questions, comments, and suggestions coming in. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.
We'll see ya.